WECT News begins now with breaking news.
And that breaking news tonight, detainees arrested in immigration raids in Raleigh are in New Hanover County tonight.
WECT's Connor Smith joins us now with the latest. Connor, they were transferred here.
Yeah, that's right, Fran. Originally, 9 detainees were held overnight, but that number is now down to 2. The New Hanover County Sheriff's Office confirmed 7 of the detainees were sent to a different facility this morning. That leaves 2 in custody here in New Hanover County. They were part of a large-scale roundup in Raleigh and Charlotte, with federal immigration agents detaining more than 250 people since Sunday. The operation is allegedly targeting people living in the country without legal permission and with a criminal record. Now, regarding those detainees, who those detainees are and why they were taken into federal custody, we are working to find out those details. It's also unclear if any more detainees will be sent to New Hanover County. Connor Smith, WECT News.